The sharp scent of pine needles and damp earth filled my lungs as I lingered at the edge of the clearing, watching the gathering from afar. The annual Northern Pack Summit had turned the forest into a living, breathing organism. Hundreds of werewolves moved like purposeful shadows beneath the moonlight. Their murmurs rumbled through the air, echoing my own racing heartbeat. Bonfires dotted the landscape, casting long, flickering shadows across faces that would never welcome me. I drew my threadbare jacket tighter, feeling the autumn chill seep through the worn fabric. The silver pendant from my grandmother hung heavily against my chest, a crescent moon cradling a small white stone. "Remember, Nira," she had whispered before passing. "Even the smallest light shines brightest in darkness." I touched it now, seeking her comfort, as I had countless times before. 23 years of standing on the margins had taught me how to fade into the backgrounds, how to make myself almost invisible. Not that I wanted to disappear, just that it hurt less than being seen and found lacking. "There you are." The voice belonged to Lyra Dawn, the only packmate who ever sought me out. "You're missing the feast." "I'm not missing anything," I muttered. My gaze locked on the flickering gathering. "They're missing me. That's exactly how everyone wants it." Lyra sighed, her dark curls bouncing as she shook her head. "The alphas are asking all unmated wolves to present themselves." My stomach twisted. That included me. The summit was, among other things, a glorified matchmaking event. Alphas from every territory brought their eligible wolves together, hoping new bonds would strengthen bloodlines. "What's the point?" I asked, finally turning to her. "We both know what happens when I try to shift." Most werewolves experience their first shift at puberty. A natural, painful, and inevitable rite. For me, it had always been different. My body had tried bones cracking, skin stretching, but something always stopped before completion. A half shift that left me trembling, broken. Neither fully human nor wolf. A failure. Lyra's expression softened. "Maybe this time will be different." After 23 attempts, I doubt it. A horn sounded in the distance, 3 long, mournful notes rolling through the trees. "The summoning," Lyra said, taking my hand. "Come on. Alpha Rafe will notice if you're absent." Rafe Ironheart, our pack's alpha, had no patience for weakness and even less for me. My parents had been respected warriors, slain defending our territory when I was a child. My inability to shift had been an embarrassment he barely tolerated. As we approached the main clearing, the crowd instinctively parted for Lyra, as the beta's daughter respect followed her without effort. I trailed behind, aware of curious stares and whispered judgments. "Is that Ironheart's defective one? Can't even shift properly. Waste of bloodline." The words stung as always. I lifted my chin, letting the pendant's warmth against my skin anchor me. A small comfort. In the center of the clearing, 12 alphas and their seconds formed a loose circle around the ceremonial fire. Rafe's imposing silhouette was easy to spot. Broad shoulders, black hair streaked with silver, an aura of danger. Beside him stood his son, Kael Storm, inheriting the same strength and cold gray eyes, but none of his father's cruelty. Our eyes met briefly across the flames. Kael nodded once, a faint acknowledgement most would have missed. I looked away quickly, afraid of betraying anything. We had grown up together, trained together, but as his father's heir, Kael's responsibilities didn't include friendship with the pack's outcast. Unmated wolves stepped forward. Rafe commanded, his voice carrying across the clearing. Lyra squeezed my hand before gently nudging me forward. I joined the line of young wolves at the very end, wishing I could vanish into the shadows. One by one, alphas inspected the potential mates. Some were asked to shift, displaying coats of brown, black, gray, and russet that shimmered in the firelight. Others were questioned about skills, lineage, and ambitions. The ritual carried an unspoken tension. This was not merely about love, it was about power alliances and the pack's future. As the line thinned and my turn drew near, My anxiety grew like a storm tightening its grip. I thought about running, vanishing into the forest, and not returning until the summit ended. But where could I go? The pack was all I had, even if I had always lingered at its edges. Nira Frost. Rafe called, his tone sharp, making my name feel like an indictment. I stepped forward, legs trembling beneath me. The circle of alphas scrutinized me with looks ranging from curious interest to outright dismissal. "Your lineage?" asked a female alpha from the Western Territories, eyes slicing through me. "Daughter of Michael and Sarah Frost," I replied, lifting my chin despite the weight of judgment. My parents had been heroes, and I could see recognition flash across some faces. Even years after their deaths, their legacy still commanded respect. "And your wolf?" another alpha asked, a tall man with a jagged scar tracing down the side of his face. My throat tightened. I struggled to shift fully. A low murmur rippled through the gathering. Rafe's jaw tightened, a muscle flexing beneath his skin. "Show us," commanded the scarred alpha. My heart sank. This was exactly what I had dreaded. Public humiliation was not new, but it never became easier. Alpha Varric Rafe interjected. "Perhaps we should move on. There are other candidates." Varric's eyes narrowed, piercing. "I've heard whispers that your pack harbors a half-shift," he said. "I want to see it for myself." I froze. Panic lodged in my throat. The air suddenly thickened, heavy and stifling. Out of the corner of my eye, Kael stepped forward, only to be halted by a sharp glance from his father. "Shift!" Varric growled again, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. I closed my eyes, bracing for the inevitable. Pain, failure, shame. Yet there was no turning back. I reached deep inside, touching that familiar core every wolf carried. I coaxed it outward, feeling the initial surge of energy that had always ended in false hope. Bones began to crack and twist, skin prickling as fur attempted to push through. The transformation started as it always had, promising powerful. And then, resistance. Like hitting an invisible wall, my body froze between forms, neither human nor wolf. White-hot pain surged through me, consuming every nerve. I collapsed to my knees, gasping eyes brimming with tears. Around me, expressions of disgust and pity lingered. "Enough," someone muttered. Kael Varric sneered. "This is what happens when the weak are allowed to linger in packs." In my territory, she would have been cast out years ago. His words cut deeper than the pain itself. Alone. My deepest fear. And then something unexpected. The pendant against my chest flared with searing heat, pulsing in rhythm with my heart. A wave of power, unlike anything I'd ever known, surged through me, pushing past the invisible barrier that had always halted my shift. Vision blurred the world, tilting under a new, purifying kind of pain. Clean, clarifying, consuming. Gasps echoed through the crowd. The air itself shifted. And then suddenly, the pain vanished, replaced by a sense of rightness, of completeness. I opened my eyes and the world was reborn in sharp, vivid detail. Colors, richer. Senses, heightened, sounds, crisp and clear. I glanced down, expecting human hands. Instead, white fur against the dark earth. I had shifted. Fully. The clearing fell into utter silence. I lifted my head, feeling strange new muscles beneath unfamiliar fur. The circle of alphas stared, expressions frozen between shock and something else. Something that looked like awe. "A white Luna," whispered the female alpha from before, her voice barely audible. One by one, the alphas lowered their gazes. They began to kneel. One by one, the most powerful wolves of the Northern Territories lowered themselves to the ground in front of me. Rafe's face had drained of all color. Kael stood beside his father, his silver-gray eyes wide with disbelief. Even Varric's shadow, who only moments earlier had demanded my exile, bent one knee and bowed his head to the earth. In the flickering firelight, My reflection shimmered in a shallow puddle near my paws. A wolf stared back, fur as white as untouched snow eyes, glowing faintly with the same light pulsing from the pendant still hanging around my neck. The white Luna, a legend whispered through every bloodline. The rarest of wolves, said to be born only in times of great upheaval when the balance between realms trembled. A creature of power, of prophecy, and somehow, impossibly, that creature was me. A sound rippled through the undergrowth, too soft for ordinary ears, but my heightened senses caught it instantly. A scent followed sharp and foreign. My head turned toward the trees, muscles tensing, a low growl rising unbidden in my throat. For a single heartbeat I saw eyes glinting in the darkness, eyes that reflected no light, as if they drank it in. Then they vanished. Yet the prickle along my spine didn't fade. Something had watched me, something that didn't belong. By dawn, the camp lay quiet beneath streaks of crimson and gold. I hadn't slept. The night had been spent in my new form, pacing the edge of the forest, with Nira Dawn close behind. The feeling of completeness was intoxicating after a lifetime of broken halves. Now, with morning light spilling through my tent, I sat cross-legged on the thin mat, staring at my trembling hands. Human again. Pale, ordinary. The change back had been effortless, like breathing after being underwater too long. Yet the memory of white fur, of sharpened senses, lingered beneath my skin. "They're waiting for you," Nira said, stepping inside without a sound. Her usually bright face was drawn dark circles shadowing her eyes. "The Council of Alphas has gathered." My stomach tightened. "Why?" She gave me a look that said I already knew. "You know why, Nira. A white Luna hasn't appeared in 2 centuries. The last one guided the packs through the Great War I finished for her. Everyone knew the legend. Every pup had heard it before their first shift. But I shook my head. That doesn't mean it's real. It could be a mistake." Lyra's voice dropped soft and trembling. "Your wolf isn't cream or silver. She's pure white. There's no mistake." I touched Mavie Silver's pendant, still warm against my chest. Had my grandmother known? Was this why she'd told me to keep it close even when shifting had seemed impossible? "What do they want from me?" I asked quietly, though I already suspected the answer. "To test you," Nira said, avoiding my gaze. "To confirm what you are." I rose, smoothing the simple dress I'd changed into. And if I am what they think, Nira finally met my eyes. Then everything changes, Nira. For all of us. Outside the camp had transformed. Word of the white Luna had spread like wildfire. Wolves from every pack watched me as I walked toward the central pavilion. Some bowed their heads as I passed. Others reached out, fingertips brushing my arm as if to make sure I was real, as if I carried some contagious blessing. "Make way," a commanding voice cut through the swelling crowd. Through the throng, Kael Storm pushed forward. His tall frame loomed imposing, even without the weight of his father's authority pressing behind him. "The council is waiting," he said. Our eyes met, and for the first time in years, he didn't look away. Something had shifted between us. The careful distance he had maintained since becoming Rafe Ironheart's heir had vanished in the wake of last night's revelation. "Nate," I whispered softly, using the childhood nickname that felt strange on my tongue now. "What's happening?" I saw a muscle work along his jaw. "Politics," he answered grimly. "Come, I'll walk with you." As we moved toward the pavilion, the crowd seemed to part more easily for him than it had for me. Power recognized and respected him, rather than fear the unknown. "They're divided," he murmured, close enough that his breath stirred my hair. "Some believe you're the true white Luna. Others think it's a trick." "It's not a trick," I said, surprised by the sudden defensiveness in my own voice. "I don't know what happened, but when I shifted, it felt right. Like finally finding something I didn't even know I'd lost." Kael's expression softened. "I believe you, Nira. I've always known there was more to you than anyone else could see." The unexpected gentleness in his tone made my heart flutter in a way that had nothing to do with fear or magic. I pushed the feeling aside. This wasn't at the time. The pavilion loomed ahead, a massive structure of wood and canvas, built specifically for the summit. 2 guards flanked the entrance, postures stiffening as we approached. Inside voices rose and fell in heated debate. They cannot simply accept without proof. The signs are clear. Let the tester see, one voice demanded. The room fell silent as we entered. 12 alphas sat in a semicircle, including Rafe and Varric Shadow. At the center stood an ancient woman I had never seen before. Her silver hair cascaded down her back, her lined face radiating age wisdom and quiet authority. Nira Frost, she said, her voice shockingly strong for someone so frail. I am Elder Tiva Moon. I inclined my head instinctively, respect coursing through me, though I had never met her. Elder, do you know why I've been summoned? I asked, swallowing hard. I assume it concerns what happened last night. Not what happened, Varric interjected sharply, his scar catching in the shadowed light of the pavilion. What you claim happened, I bristled. I claim nothing. I shifted, and you all reacted. Another alpha remarked, a woman with sharp calculating eyes. After 23 years of failure, Tiva Moon raised a gnarled hand, silencing the murmurs. There are ways to confirm that the white Luna is more than mere appearance. She carries the blessing of the moon goddess herself, Tiva continued. Abilities beyond ordinary shifting. My mouth went dry. What kind of abilities? I asked. Healing, Tiva said. Command. Sight beyond sight. The specifics vary with each Luna, but the essence remains the same, she explained. Power tempered by compassion. Strength born of empathy. I thought of the eyes I had glimpsed in the forest, the sense of wrongness that had prickled along my nerves. Was that a hint of these abilities? Or merely heightened wolf senses I was unaccustomed to? How do you suggest we test these abilities? I asked. For the first time, Rafe Ironheart spoke. His voice neutral, careful. But I could sense the tension beneath his words. Tiva turned to me. Are you willing, child, to undergo the trials? Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to run, but the pendant against my chest pulsed warmly, a reminder of Maeve Silver's words. Even the smallest light shines brightest in darkness. Perhaps this was what she had meant. I'll do it, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. A faint smile tugged at Tiva Moon's weathered lips. Good. The first trial begins at midday. You may choose one to stand as your witness. Without hesitation, I turned to Kael Storm. Him. A ripple of surprise swept through the gathered alphas. Rafe Ironheart's brows furrowed. My son is heir to the Ironheart pack. His duties. I accept. Kael interrupted, his gaze locked on mine. Something flared behind those steel-gray eyes, determination, defiance, and something deeper I couldn't name. Rafe's jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. Whatever game of power was unfolding, I had just made an unexpected move. Midday at the sacred pool, Tiva Moon announced. Until then, Nira Frost will prepare in solitude. I was led to a quiet clearing not far from Camp Ancient Pines, forming a canopy overhead. The guards left without a word, and the silence pressed in, heavy with expectation. I sank to the mossy earth, pressing my palms against the cool ground. What was happening to me yesterday? I had been nothing, the pack's failure, the half-shift barely tolerated. Now I stood at the center of a storm alphas, debating my existence as if I were some relic of legend. The forest hummed around me, birds calling small creatures stirring in the underbrush. Insects droning softly among wildflowers. I closed my eyes and let the sounds wash over me. There was rhythm here, a pattern I'd never noticed before, like a language the forest had always spoken, but I'd never understood. A twig snapped. My eyes flew open. I know you're there, I called, rising to my feet. Show yourself. Silence. Then slowly a figure emerged from between two towering pines. Not Kael, not Lyra, not any of the alphas. A young man I had never seen before, skin pale as frost, eyes dark as midnight. White Luna. He said, his voice carrying an accent I couldn't place. My master sends greetings. A chill crept down my spine. Your master. He smiled, revealing teeth too sharp to belong to any human or wolf. The king beyond the veil sends his regards. And a warning. What king? What veil? I demanded, resisting the instinct to step back. There was something wrong about him. The same wrongness I'd felt in the forest last night. He has watched your kind for centuries, the stranger continued, ignoring my question, waiting for the white Luna to rise again. And now you have. His smile widened. So young, so untested, so very fragile. My heart thundered, but I refused to move. What does he want from me? The stranger's gaze absorbed the sunlight, filtering through the leaves, reflecting nothing. He offers you a choice, Luna. Stand with him when the veil thins, or watch your packs burn. Before I could answer, footsteps echoed nearby. The stranger's head snapped toward the sound. We will meet again, he whispered, and then dissolved into shadow, leaving no trace behind. Seconds later, Kael Storm burst into the clearing, his expression fierce with worry. Nira, are you all right? I felt. He stopped scanning the trees with narrowed eyes. Someone was here. You felt it. I asked, my pulse still racing. His eyes returned to me, confusion tightening his jaw. I felt something, like a cold hand closing around my heart. I knew you were in danger. He stepped closer, scanning me, as if checking for wounds. What happened? Who was here? I parted my lips to answer but hesitated. The stranger's words still pulsed in my mind. A warning, a threat. Should I speak of it, or would that only deepen the chaos already surrounding me? Nira Kael Storm's voice softened, his hand resting on my shoulder. You can trust me, whatever it is. The warmth of his touch anchored me, solid, steady. This was Kael, the boy who used to split his lunch with me when others turned away, who had taught me how to fight when I couldn't shift to defend myself, before duty and bloodlines had driven us apart. Someone was here, I finally said. Not one of us. Not human either. He said he carried a message from the king beyond the veil. Kael's face darkened. Darius Vale, he murmured. The unseen court. The legends say they live in a realm beside ours, watching through a barrier mortals can't see. His grip tightened on my shoulder. What did he want? He said his king has been waiting for the white Luna to return. I swallowed hard. He told me to stand with them when the veil thins, or watch the packs burn. Kael's jaw flexed. We have to tell the council. I caught his arm as he turned to go. Wait. What if they think I made it up, or worse, what if they think I'm working with them, with whatever they are? His eyes softened as he looked down at me. Do you trust me, Nira? The question hung between us, weighted with years of distance and unspoken things. Yes, I breathed. I always have. Something shifted in his expression, relief, or maybe resolve. Then trust me now. Let me help you through this. His hand slid from my shoulder to cup my cheek, the touch so gentle it caught my breath. You're not alone anymore. Sunlight broke through the trees above, scattering across his face in shards of gold. For a heartbeat we stood there suspended in silence, thick with everything we'd never said. Then the horn sounded one clear ringing note that tore through the forest. The call to trial. It's time, Kael said, his hand falling away. Are you ready? I wasn't. How could anyone be ready for this? But I nodded, squaring my shoulders. As ready as I'll ever be. We walked side by side toward the sacred pool eyes, following us from the shadows. Whether they belonged to the alphas, the stranger, or something else entirely, I couldn't tell. The sacred pool lay in a hollow carved by time, its surface reflecting the midday sky like a sheet of glass. Ancient stones ringed the water, etched with symbols that pulsed faintly under the sunlight. Protection, balance, sacrifice, renewal. The alphas and their seconds stood around the perimeter faces, seeing beneath the blazing sky. Tiva Moon waited at the water's edge, a small wooden bowl in her gnarled hands. Lyra Dawn caught my gaze from across the clearing, offering a quiet nod of encouragement. I tried to return it, though my limbs felt weighed down by dread. Failure wasn't an option now, not anymore. Step forward. Nira Frost. Tiva called, her voice carrying effortlessly across the clearing. Kael squeezed my hand once before letting go. Remember who you are, he whispered. I moved toward the pool, aware of every eye tracking me. The earth beneath my bare feet felt alive, connected like the roots themselves recognized me. The first trial, Tiva announced, is one of healing. The white Luna's touch can mend what is broken, restore what is lost. She dipped the bowl into the pool, filling it with crystal water, then drew a small silver blade from her robe. Before I could react, she dragged it across her palm. Blood fell into the bowl, ruby drops sinking deep before the water cleared again, leaving no trace. She held the bowl out to me. I hesitated. Shouldn't I heal that first? A murmur rippled through the gathered wolves. Tiva's eyes glimmered with faint amusement. The water first, child. It will awaken your senses to what must be done. Taking a slow, steady breath, I lifted the bowl and drank. The water tasted like nothing at first, then like stone earth and something ancient that had no name. It moved through me like liquid moonlight, threading through my veins, settling into my bones. Now Tiva Moon said, extending her wounded hand. Heal. I took her hand, carefully studying the cut. It wasn't deep, but blood still welled from the neat slice. My heart pounded. What was I supposed to do? No one had told me how to call this power they all believed I carried. Closing my eyes, I focused on her hand, the fragile skin, the pulse beneath my thumb, the tremor of life itself. I thought of wholeness, of knitting torn flesh, of mending what was broken. Nothing. Panic clawed at my chest. I opened my eyes to see the entire circle watching in silence. Tiva's face betrayed nothing. I don't know how, I whispered. You do, she said simply. Look deeper. I drew another breath and closed my eyes again, pushing past fear and doubt, past all the years I'd felt broken and less than whole. I reached inward to that quiet, glowing core I had found the night before, when my wolf had finally answered my call. There. A pulse of something softer, calmer than raw power. I pulled it upward, guiding it through my chest, down my arm and into my palm, pressed to Tiva's skin. Warmth spread between us, gentle, steady, alive. I could feel the skin weaving itself back together, blood ceasing, life restoring. When I opened my eyes, her hand was whole again. Smooth, unmarked, as if the wound had never existed. Tiva Moon smiled, and the gesture transformed her lined face. Well done, Luna. Relief hit me so hard my knees nearly gave out. I'd done it. I'd actually done it, but Tiva wasn't finished. She turned to the gathered alphas. Bring him forward. The crowd parted. 2 wolves appeared, supporting a third between them. My breath caught. A young man, maybe 18, ashen-faced with pain, his right leg twisted at a wrong, unnatural angle. Jace Flint broke his leg during yesterday's hunt, Tiva said. The bone shattered. Our healers have done what they can, but he will never run again. Unless. The unspoken challenge settled heavily between us. This wasn't about a cut, it was about restoring what no healer could. They laid Jace before me. Sweat covered his pale forehead, his breath short, despite the herbs that dulled his pain. His eyes met mine wide with desperation that struck straight to my heart. I knelt beside him, laying both hands on his mangled leg. I could sense everything, the shattered bone, torn muscle, nerves aflame. I've never done anything like this, I said quietly. The power is the same, Tiva replied. Only the depth changes. I inhaled deeply, finding that quiet, steady pulse within again. This time it answered faster, as if it knew what I needed. I guided it outward, through my hands into Jace's body. The connection snapped into place instantly, and it nearly overwhelmed me. I felt his agony, the brokenness, the fire of pain. It surged through me like an echo I couldn't escape. But I didn't let go. I pictured the bones knitting the muscle, sealing the heat fading. The energy flowed through me like a river, pulled by instinct rather than knowledge. Time blurred. Minutes or hours I couldn't tell. When I opened my eyes, exhaustion hit me like a wave. Jace Flint stared at his leg, then flexed it gingerly. Then again stronger. It's healed, he whispered, awe thick in his voice. Completely healed. The gathered wolves erupted in murmurs and gasps of awe. Even the most skeptical alphas leaned forward, their expressions transformed by what they had just witnessed. I swayed slightly lightheaded from the exertion. Kael Storm was at my side in an instant arm, sliding around my waist, steadying me. "You did it," he murmured, pride threading his voice. "Rest," Tiva Moon said, though she wasn't done. "The second trial, the trial of command, begins now." My heart sank. The healing had drained me, leaving my energy stretched thin. "The White Luna's voice carries power," Tiva continued. "When she speaks with true intent, all must obey." She gestured toward the forest edge. At her signal, guards pushed forward a cage containing a wolf. Not a werewolf, but a wild, untamed wolf. Its gray coat was matted eyes blazing amber with fury and fear as it slammed against the bars. "This creature was caught raiding our stores," Tiva Moon explained. "It has attacked 3 pack members who tried to approach." I stared at it, then back at her. "What do you expect me to do?" I asked. "Command it," she said simply. "Calm its fear. Earn its trust." The cage swung open, and the wolf lunged out, teeth bared in a snarl. The gathered wolves tensed, ready to shift if it attacked. But instead of lunging, it backed toward the tree line, intent on escape. "Stop!" I said the word, forming on my tongue before I had fully thought it. The wolf froze mid-step, its muscles, rigid eyes wild but focused on me. I took a cautious step forward, then another. "I won't hurt you," I whispered. A thread of connection sparked between us. This was different from healing Jace Flint. Not mending flesh, but communion. I felt its fear, its confusion, the hunger that had driven it to our camp, the panic of being trapped among creatures that smelled like wolves, but walked like humans. "Come here," I said, extending my hand. The wolf hesitated, ears flattened, a body low to the ground, conflicted. Then slowly it approached. I knelt, bringing myself to its level. Our eyes met, amber to blue, and understanding passed between us, without words. Gradually its tension ebbed. It pressed its muzzle against my palm, a gesture of trust that tightened my throat. "You're safe now," I murmured, stroking its matted fur. "No one will harm you." The wolf settled beside me as if it had been raised among humans. I looked up. The crowd was silent, stunned. "The trial of command is complete," Tiva Moon declared, satisfaction in her tone. "One trial remains." I rose, fatigue weighing heavily. The wolf pressed close to my leg for reassurance. "The final trial is the trial of sight," Tiva Moon said. "The White Luna can perceive what others cannot, hidden. Threats obscured truths, futures yet to unfold." A shiver ran down my spine as I remembered the stranger in the clearing. His impossible disappearance, his warnings of the veil. "There is one among you who is not as they appear," Tiva Moon announced, sweeping her gaze over the gathered wolves. "Find them, Luna. Reveal what is hidden." Panic fluttered in my chest. How could I identify someone in disguise? Among hundreds of wolves, I didn't even know what I was looking for. The pendant at my neck pulsed warmly, and my grandmother's voice whispered in my mind, "Look with more than your eyes, Nira." I closed my eyes, reaching not for healing or command, but for another facet of my power. Something layered, subtle, far-reaching. When I opened them again, the world shimmered differently. Every wolf glowed with a soft inner light, the aura of their wolf spirits, each color and intensity unique. All except one. My gaze fixed on a figure at the edge of the gathering, a woman I had noticed earlier among the northern pack's entourage. Unlike the others, she radiated no light. A shifting shadow clung to her, writhing like living darkness. There, I said, pointing. Instant chaos erupted. Her face contorted, features shifting unnaturally as she tried to flee, but wolves surged to block her escape. With an inhuman shriek, she shifted not into a wolf, but something else entirely. Tall, gaunt, her skin rough and bark-like, fingers stretching into jagged branch-like claws. "Dryad," someone shouted. "Forest witch." The creature lashed out, striking at the nearest wolves. 3 fell clutching at wounds that blackened and spread almost instantly. I didn't hesitate. I stepped forward, the wild wolf still at my heel. "Stop," I commanded. The same power that had halted the wolf before surged through the word. The dryad froze, her bark-like face twisting in hatred. "White Luna," she hissed, the sound like leaves rattling in a storm. "My king warned me about you." The words echoed in my mind, the same king the stranger had mentioned. The king beyond the veil. "Why are you here?" I demanded. "What does your king want?" Her laughter snapped through the clearing like breaking branches in a gale. "To end what should have ended centuries ago. The barrier weakens. Soon he will." A blur of movement struck her as Rafe Ironheart lunged in wolf form, fangs aimed for her throat. But she was faster. Her elongated arm shot forward, fingers sharpened into wooden spears that pierced his chest. Blood sprayed the clearing. Rafe fell convulsing as he shifted back to human form, the poison already coursing through his veins. Father Kael Storm's anguished cry cut through the chaos. He dropped to his knees, cradling Rafe's head. Black veins snaked rapidly from the wound, spreading across his skin. The dryad used the distraction to break free, darting toward the tree line with unnatural speed. Wolves gave chase, but she vanished into the forest, leaving only rustling leaves in her wake. I had no time to worry about her escape. Rafe was dying before our eyes, the poison overtaking him. I pushed through the gathering, dropping to my knees beside him. "Move back," I ordered. The power in my voice made even the senior alpha step aside. Kael remained face-pale, hands steadying his father. Our eyes met over Rafe's convulsing form. Raw fear. "Save him," he whispered. "Please, Nira." I placed my hands over Rafe's chest, directly above the wound. The poison wasn't just physical. It was malevolent, alive, consuming him from within. Black veins had reached his neck, creeping toward his face. I closed my eyes, summoning the healing energy, pushing it into him with desperate force. It flowed, but the poison resisted, fighting against my touch. "It's not working," I gasped, panic tightening my throat. "Try harder," Kael urged. "You can do this." I pushed more energy into the flow, but the darkness advanced nonetheless. Rafe's breathing grew ragged, his pulse weak beneath my hands. Lunativa Moon called from behind, calm despite the crisis. "The poison is not of this world. Ordinary healing cannot stop it." "Then what can I?" demanded, refusing to lift my hands. "Find its source. See beyond the physical," she instructed. I didn't fully understand, but I trusted her. One hand stayed on Rafe's chest. The other rose to my pendant, drawing strength from its warmth. I closed my eyes again. Instead of pushing energy outward, I let my awareness sink into him. The poison appeared in my mind as threads of darkness pulsing with malice, tracing back through the forest to the escaped dryad, and beyond her to something vast, ancient, lurking behind the shimmer of reality, the veil itself. I didn't know how, but I understood what I had to do. Visualizing my healing as a blade of pure light, I severed the tether connecting Rafe to the malevolent force. The effect was immediate. Rafe gasped, arching as the black veins retreated, the poison losing its grip. My energy flowed freely, repairing the damage left in its wake. When I opened my eyes, exhaustion slammed into me. Rafe looked at me, alert. His gaze clear, mixed with awe and fear. "You saved me," he said, voice hoarse. Before I could respond, Kael Storm pulled me into a fierce embrace. "Thank you," he whispered into my hair, his arms trembling slightly around me. The moment shattered as Tiva Moon's commanding voice rang out. "The trials are complete," she announced to the gathered wolves. "Nira Frost has proven herself through healing command and sight. She is without a doubt the White Luna." A reverent hush fell across the clearing, followed by a ripple of movement. One by one, the werewolves knelt, not just the alphas this time, but every wolf present. Even Rafe Ironheart, still recovering from the near-fatal strike, inclined his head in acknowledgement. Only Kael remained standing beside me, hand finding mine and giving a gentle squeeze. "What happens now?" I asked Tiva Moon quietly as the packs began to disperse, glancing back at me over their shoulders. "Now," she replied, "you prepare for war." The words hung heavy between us, loaded with implication. The Dryad was only a scout. She continued, her voice low audible, only to Kael and me. "The unseen court has observed our world for centuries, waiting for the right moment to cross over. The appearance of a White Luna signals the veil thinning between realms. They will come, child, and soon." Why, I asked, struggling to process this new reality. What do they want? What all conquerors want? Territory, power, subjects to rule. Our world is rich, theirs is barren. They tried before during the time of the last White Luna, and she stopped them. I finished recalling the legends. Tiva Moon nodded. At great cost, many packs were lost in that war. The White Luna sacrificed herself to seal the breach, but her magic weakened over time. Now the king beyond the veil senses an opportunity. The weight of her words settled on me like a boulder across my shoulders. Yesterday I had been nobody. Today I was the only thing standing between our world and an otherworldly invasion. "I don't know how to fight a war," I admitted, my voice small. "You won't be alone," Kael said firmly. Rafe had recovered enough to speak, leaning on his second for support. "My son is right. The summit was meant to strengthen alliances. Now, it has an even greater purpose." This was not the dismissive alpha who had been ashamed of my existence for years. "The first priority," Rafe continued, "is protection. The White Luna must be guarded at all times. If the unseen court realizes her potential, they will target her specifically." I began. "You do," Tiva Moon interrupted gently. "Your power is new, untrained. Until you control it fully, you are vulnerable." I wanted to argue, but the bone-deep exhaustion made even standing difficult. The healing, especially severing Rafe's connection to the poison, had drained me more than I wanted to admit. "My son will be her primary guardian," Rafe declared, and both Kael and I looked at him in surprise. "As heir to the Ironheart pack, he has the strength and training required. I also sense a connection between them that may prove advantageous," he added. Heat flushed my cheeks at his implication. Kael straightened his expression carefully. Neutral, though his grip on my hand tightened. "I accept the responsibility," he said formally. "Good," Rafe nodded. "We return to Ironheart territory immediately. Our defenses are strongest there." "No," I said, finding my voice. "If war is coming, we need all the packs, not just ours. We stay and finish the summit, but with a new purpose." Rafe frowned clearly, unaccustomed to being contradicted. Before he could speak, Tiva Moon nodded. "The Luna is right. Retreat now would show weakness. We must present a united front." To my surprise, Rafe acquiesced with a short nod. "As you wish, Luna," he said. The title still sounded strange, especially without his usual contempt. As the council dispersed to spread word of the new threat, Kael guided me away from the sacred pool to a quiet area to rest. The wild wolf from my trial padded silently at our side, apparently choosing to remain with me. You should name him. Kael observed his hand supporting my elbow, as if I might collapse at any moment. I studied the gray wolf, considering his silent loyalty. Ghost. I decided, for the way he moves without a sound. The wolf's ears flicked up at the name, as if acknowledging and approving it. How are you really feeling? Kael Storm asked, once we were alone, concern etched in every line of his face. I sank onto a fallen log, unable to keep up the facade of strength any longer. Terrified, I admitted. Yesterday, I could barely shift. Today, the entire world expected me to fend off an invasion of magical beings I hadn't even known existed until hours ago. Kael sat beside me, shoulders brushing mine. You're not alone in this. Nira, he said, I'm here. The packs are here, I whispered. Why are you being so kind to me? The question I had held back for years finally escaped. His expression softened, shadows of a long-hidden vulnerability surfacing. It was never distance by choice. My father, he believed, showing favor toward you, would undermine my role as future alpha. He said an heir cannot show preference for the pack's weakest member. Shame crossed his face as he admitted it. I was wrong to obey him, he continued, but I thought I was protecting the pack. Protecting you, even. For me, I repeated disbelief, sharp in my voice. The closer you were, the more they targeted you. His hand found mine again, fingers intertwining. I thought keeping my distance would shield you, he confessed. Instead, I ended up hurting you. I'm sorry, Nira. The sincerity in his voice squeezed my throat. All this time, I thought you were ashamed of me like everyone else. Never, he said fiercely. I've always seen you, Nira, even when you couldn't see yourself. The intensity in his eyes made my heart race a pulse, not of fear, not of magic. For a heartbeat, I imagined him leaning closer, bridging the small distance between us. But the spell broke. Lyra Dawn burst through the trees, frantic. Nira Kael. You need to come quickly. Another attack, I asked, springing to my feet. Ghost padding silently beside us. 3 dead, 2 missing, Lyra said, voice tense. A scouting party from the Western Pack. Not the Dryad this time. What was it? I pressed. Shadow and Bone. Survivors said they were searching for the White Luna. For you, Nira. A chill ran down my spine. We're the Western Ridge, about 2 miles from camp. Kael's expression hardened. We'll be there. He turned to me as Lyra hurried back toward camp. You should rest, he said. You've expended too much energy already today. Because of me, I countered. Because of what I am. I can't hide while others are fighting. He studied me long and hard, then nodded reluctantly. At least stay close. I meant what I said to my father. I'll protect you, Nira, even if it costs my life. It won't come to that, I said, trying to sound steadier than I felt. We walked back to camp, Ghost moving silently alongside. But the forest felt different now, oppressive, as if eyes and threats lurked behind every shadow. The War Council had convened in the central pavilion, all 12 alphas, with their seconds and Tiva Moon overseeing the strategy. Maps spread across a large table marked territory and attack sites. The Dryad strike was here at the sacred pool, Varric Shadow, said, placing a marker. The shadow creatures hit the western ridge. Another marker followed, both points near the thinning of the veil. Thin spots, I stepped forward, eyes sweeping the council. Respect and wariness rippled across faces. Tiva Moon nodded. Places where the barrier between our world and the unseen quartz realm is naturally weak. Ancient magic once fortified these points, but that magic has faded, Kael concluded. They're probing for weaknesses, searching for the White Luna. Exactly. Varric added, his eyes cold. His scarred face tightened grim. My scouts report the shadow creatures were asking questions about you, before they struck. They want to eliminate you, before your power fully awakens. The meaning was clear. I was both our greatest weapon and our greatest vulnerability. Then we need to accelerate her training, Rafe Ironheart said. Recovered enough to stand without support, he continued. She needs to master her abilities quickly. I blinked. I've been the White Luna for less than a day. How am I supposed to master anything quickly? Through necessity, Tiva Moon said simply. The last White Luna didn't have the luxury of years of training either, she added. She learned as she fought. Every battle strengthened her connection to her power. The pendant at my throat pulsed warmly, as if affirming her words. The immediate concern is defending the summit while preparing a female alpha from the Eastern Territories said. We have over 500 werewolves gathered here, the largest concentration of our kind in decades. If the unseen court launched a full assault now, the thought didn't need finishing. It would have been a massacre. We need more information, I said, surprising myself with the authority in my voice. About these thin spots, I continued. About the enemy's capabilities. About what a White Luna can truly do against them. Tiva Moon nodded approvingly. The old records are kept in the archive cave not far from here. They contain accounts from the last war, including the previous Luna's journals. Hope flared in my chest. Her journals. She wrote about her experiences, her powers. Yes. Though many pages were damaged over time, what remained could be invaluable now. I need to see them, I decided. Immediately. The archive cave lay deep within the mountain overlooking the summit grounds. Kael Storm and I followed Tiva Moon along a narrow path winding through dense forest. Ghost padding silently ahead. I tried to process everything from the past 24 hours, my shift from outcast to White Luna, the revelation of the unseen court, the attacks that had already claimed lives. It felt like a dream I couldn't wake from. We're here, Tiva announced as we reached a sheer rock face. At first glance, it appeared ordinary, but as we drew closer, I noticed symbols, carved into the stone, similar to those at the sacred pool, but more intricate, more ancient. The elder pressed her palm to a pattern and whispered words in a language I didn't recognize. Slowly, the solid rock seemed to ripple and part, revealing a dark passage beyond. Only those with pack blood can enter, she explained. And only an alpha or Luna can open the entrance. Kael lit a torch, the flickering flame casting long shadows as we entered the mountain's heart. The passage opened into a vast chamber lined with stone shelves. Each held stacks of leather-bound journals, scrolls tied with faded ribbons, and artifacts I couldn't identify. This is the collected wisdom and history of our kind, Tiva Moon said reverently. Dating back nearly 1,000 years. She led us to a section marked with a symbol resembling my pendant, the White Luna records. Everything we know about your predecessors is here. I approached cautiously, feeling the weight of history and expectation. These pages held the experiences of women who had carried the same burden. I now bore women who had faced the same enemy and somehow prevailed. With trembling fingers, I lifted the topmost journal. Its leather cover cracked and worn with age. Inside, delicate handwriting filled pages yellowed by time. The veil thins with each passing day. I read aloud, letting the words roll over me. I can feel it now, a constant awareness at the edge of my consciousness. The court gathers its forces beyond the barrier, waiting. They believe this world belongs to them, that we are mere trespassers to be eliminated or enslaved. Turning the page, I absorbed the words of a woman long dead, who had once stood where I now stood. Today, I discovered I could strengthen the veil by channeling my energy directly into the weak points. It is draining, leaving me barely able to stand afterward, but it works. Each reinforcement buys time, days, perhaps weeks before that section weakens again. Not permanent, but enough to hold the enemy at bay. Hope flickered. If she could reinforce the veil, perhaps I could too. The king sent another emissary today, offering terms of surrender, promises that those who submit willingly would be treated well, allowed to keep their territories. A lie, of course. The court sees us as animals barely more than the wolves whose forms we share. There can be no coexistence. I continued reading page after page, detailing battles, strategies, and discoveries about the White Luna's powers. Many pages were damaged or missing, leaving gaps, but enough remained to paint a clear picture. The war had been brutal, the losses staggering, the victory costly. The final entry gave me pause. I have found a way to seal the breach permanently, to mend the veil so completely it may never be torn again. The price is high, my life essence, the very power that makes me what I am. But what good is power if not used to protect those you love? Tomorrow we make our final stand at the great convergence. If I do not survive to write again, know that I faced the end without fear, secure in the knowledge that our people will endure. I closed the journal, a lump in my throat. She had sacrificed herself to save the Pax, to seal the veil against the unseen court. And now, centuries later, her magic was failing. The burden of renewal had fallen to me. The convergence, I said, looking up at Tiva Moon. What is it? She asked. A rare alignment when all thin spots in the veil reach their weakest point simultaneously, she explained. It happens only once every few centuries. A cold realization hit me. And it's happening again soon, isn't it? That's why the court is moving now. Tiva Moon nodded gravely. 3 days from now, at the full moon, the veil will be at its thinnest, allowing a full invasion if the weak points aren't reinforced. 3 days. 3 days to master powers I barely understood, to prepare for a war against enemies I had never seen, to find a way to save everyone without sacrificing myself as my predecessor had. There must be another way, Kael Storm said, as if reading my thoughts. One that doesn't require such a sacrifice. I met his gaze, seeing the determination there, the refusal to accept a future in which I didn't survive. It gave me strength, even as the weight of responsibility threatened to crush me. We'll find it. I agreed, though uncertainty nodded silently. But first we need to secure the summit and prepare the Pax, armed with the knowledge from the archives. We returned to the encampment as twilight fell. The mood had shifted dramatically. Centuries of preparation and vigilance seemed to hang in the air. Werewolves moved in groups instead of alone. Weapons were distributed and inspected. War preparations were in full swing. Rafe Ironheart met us at the edge of camp. His recovery nothing short of remarkable even for a werewolf. The Alphas have agreed on a unified defense, he reported. All pack boundaries are suspended. From this moment, we fight as one. That level of cooperation among packs, normally territorial and prideful, was something I had never witnessed. The threat must have truly shaken even the strongest Alphas. What about the thin spots? I asked. We need to reinforce them. Before the convergence, Rafe replied, leading us toward the main pavilion. Scouts have mapped everyone within 50 miles. There are 7 total, each requiring protection. Inside the pavilion, a large map dominated the center table. Tiva Moon, Varric Shadow, and the other Alphas stood gathered around it, their expressions carved with tension. Markers indicated the veil's weak points, forming a loose circle around our location. The White Luna can strengthen the veil at these points, I said, feeling every gaze turn toward me. But it will take time and energy at each site. I'll need protection while I work. The words felt foreign on my tongue, yet they carried a quiet authority of their own. The title of White Luna held weight that went beyond my name. We'll assign rotating guards, Varric Shadow said gruffly. 5 of our strongest at every point, shifts every 6 hours, and I'll be with her the entire time, Kael Storm added, leaving no room for argument. Plans began to take shape: defensive posts, relay messengers, evacuation paths for the wounded. I listened, offering input from what I'd read in the Luna's journals, but my focus kept drifting. The pendant at my throat vibrated softly, humming like a heartbeat. It was pulling me beyond the tent, beyond the camp, into the wilderness that surrounded us. Something was calling me. "I need some air," I murmured, slipping away from the war council. Kael noticed immediately and followed without a word. Ghost emerged from the shadows to trail at my heels, silent as smoke. "What is it?" Kael asked when we stepped into the cool evening. "I don't know," I admitted, glancing toward the dark forest. "It feels like something's pulling me, calling me." His jaw tightened. "Could be a trap. The court could be trying to lure you away." I shook my head. "No, it doesn't feel dark. It feels right, like I'm being guided." He hesitated for a beat, then nodded. "Then we follow it, but not alone." He signaled 2 nearby guards who fell in behind us as we moved toward the trees. The pull grew stronger, with every step like an invisible thread tugging me forward. We hiked for nearly an hour, climbing higher until the forest opened onto a small plateau overlooking the entire summit. Below us, the camp flickered with torchlight, the sacred pool glowing faintly in the distance. Beyond that, the lands of every pack stretched to the horizon like a living map. At the plateau's center stood a single white stone waist-high, carved with a crescent moon, identical to the one etched on my pendant. As I stepped closer, the stone began to glow soft and silver, responding to my presence. Kael's breath caught. "A moon altar," he whispered. "I thought they were only legends." I didn't speak. Some primal instinct guided my hand as I pressed my palm to the cool surface of the stone. Energy surged through me, wild, ancient, and unrestrained. This wasn't the soothing warmth of healing or the steady pulse of command. It was something older, raw, untamed. Visions exploded behind my eyes, flashes of the 7 thin spots in the veil glowing like dying embers. Shadow creatures gathered beyond the barrier waiting for the convergence. And behind them, the king, Darius Vale, a dark figure wreathed in mist, crowned in antlers of bone, his voice a whisper that slithered through my mind like smoke. "You can't stop what's already begun, White Luna." Beyond the veil, upon a throne forged from twisted bone, Darius Vale watched his crown, a halo of shadows, his gaze fixed hungrily on our world. Yet in the chaos, I saw something else: hope. Wolves running side by side, united by loyalty and love. The very bond that had once allowed my predecessor to save our kind, not through death but through a sacrifice born of choice. When the vision faded, I was on my knees before the glowing altar. Kael Storm's strong arms steadying me, worry etched into every line of his face. "I know what to do," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor of exhaustion. "I know how to stop them without dying for it." Relief softened his features. How I pushed to my feet, new purpose coursing through me. The last White Luna didn't die sealing the veil. The records got it wrong. She sacrificed her power, not her life. She gave up her connection, poured it into the barrier itself. "And you can do the same?" he asked, hope and fear battling in his eyes. "I can," I said, nodding. "But I'll need help. One Luna's strength wasn't enough for a lasting seal. That's why it's failing now. But if I merge my power with the strength of the packs through their alphas..." I drew a deep breath. "We can end this for good, not just delay it for centuries." As we descended from the plateau, our plan forming between us, peace settled in my chest, despite the storm ahead. For the first time, I knew exactly who I was and why I was chosen. The path was dangerous, but I wouldn't walk it alone. 3 nights later, under the rising full moon, the convergence began. I stood at the center of a circle formed by 12 alphas, Rafe Ironheart among them. Kael Storm was behind me, his presence solid as stone. Around us, Ghost and a dozen warriors formed an outer ring of protection. The veil between worlds shimmered, nearly transparent now. Shadows pressed against it. Creatures half-born, twisting, writhing. At their head stood a towering figure, crowned in darkness. Darius Vale the king, beyond the veil, come to lead the invasion himself. Now I commanded. The alphas shifted in unison, their power-flaring streams of golden and silver energy weaving toward me. I drew it in through the mark of the white Luna, channeling it through my body until I was nothing but light. I thrust my hands toward the thinning veil. Light erupted, pure, fierce, blinding. It poured from my palms, from my eyes, from every pulse of my being. The energy struck the barrier, rippling outward in waves, sealing the fractures. The king roared the sound, shaking the air. His army of shadow beasts disintegrated as the gateway closed the last crack, sealing with a burst of white fire. His final gesture, a hand raised in fury, a silent vow to return, was swallowed by the darkness as the veil sealed tight once more. When the light dimmed, the energy returned to the alphas, flowing back into their bodies. But my power, my essence remained, changed, refined, not diminished. My predecessor had given up her power to complete the seal, but united strength had rewritten fate. I had saved our world and kept the Luna's fire alive. When the silence finally broke, Kael Storm pulled me into his arms. "It's over," I whispered, breathless. "Yes," he murmured, his voice raw. "And you're still here. Still you." Mostly I breathed with a faint smile. But nothing will ever be the same. Around us, the my pack lifted their voices in triumph. Those who once doubted me now bowed their heads with reverence. And in Kael's arms, I finally felt what destiny had promised all along. Peace. As the fires of celebration lit the night sky, I touched Mavi Silver's pendant. At my throat, its faint glow, answering mine. Even the smallest light, I whispered, shines brightest in the dark. At last I understood. What the world saw as my curse had been my strength all along. The white Luna had returned, and for the first time I was whole.